All right, what should we look at now, guys? This has got a lot of dislikes. I'm curious. 3 pointless things audio engineers are obsessed with. It's got massive dislikes here.
So as someone who puts out plugins and gets feedback from the market, I notice trends. I notice certain buzzwords or concepts that everyone wants to talk about and they become really popular.
Oh no, oh no. He's coming for you, White Sea. He saw that you're going on holiday. Look, it says auto gain. It's pointing to fucking auto gain up there.
What the?
Oh, dude. He's coming for you. He saw you're going on holiday. He probably didn't really. It's probably just a coincidence, but it's funnier if it wasn't. It'd be way funnier if it wasn't. Okay, let's look at this.
Audio world. And lately, I've noticed a few of these things that have become
They probably are obsessed with hardcore pornography.
really hot topics and must-have plugin features
He can't even defend himself on holiday. True, he's probably not even gonna see it.
that I think are mostly a waste of time. And I know I'm gonna catch a lot of heat and some haters for this video, but I also think that I'm gonna help set some
Okay, auto gain on the de-esser though, that is crazy. Okay, this is a de-esser here and it says auto gain. That is a bit much. I think you are asking a bit much there.
people free from stressing out and obsessing over things that are pretty
An auto gain on a de-esser. That's actually really funny.
much pointless. The first one of these things is gain matching. Now this comes up over and over again in comments on
Where's the de-effer? Is that for me? You can't de-effer. She's already effed, man.
videos where I'm teaching a concept,
I'm sorry, I apologize for that one.
or I'm doing a tutorial, I'm showing you how I use a certain plugin, and instead of really taking that in and commenting on that valuable piece of
That's like wanting auto gain on an expander. What about auto gain on a reverb?
advice,
No, wait, what about auto gain on... I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything dumber than putting it on a de-esser.
I just get these comments that are like, bro, you didn't gain match. Why didn't you gain match? Why doesn't this plugin have auto gain? Aren't you supposed to set the input and output exactly the same so that you can really hear what you're doing? It kind of baffles me because
Well, sometimes that matters. I mean, it depends on the context. Flip camera over. God damn it, guys. Why I auto? I really need to set this up with automatic. Okay, I think I flip over horizontally too. Okay, now it looks like I'm looking at him. Now it looks like I'm staring at him. You flipped it back over. What the f? You're just wasting my time here.
mixing for over 15 years before any plugins had any sort of auto gain matching feature. And
Just because they didn't have it back then doesn't mean that we should just go back to that time period.
I never cared. I never thought about it. And even before
Okay, then
that,
then we don't need it. He didn't think about it back then.
how long have people been mixing on analog gear and consoles where there certainly wasn't any type of gain matching function to match the levels for them? Now, of course, throughout the mix process, you're gonna adjust levels and outputs to roughly match the gain. If I'm compressing something, I'm naturally gonna adjust the output so that it's roughly similar to the unprocessed sound so that I can really hear what the compression is doing. This makes sense, and most people are gonna do this organically when needed without really having to think too much about it. But when it comes to other tools like EQ and even saturation, why do you need to level match? I mean, this actually makes no sense to me,
I don't see why you wouldn't need it on EQ sometimes.
and I'm gonna show you why.
How are you possibly going to show us why?
So to demonstrate what I'm talking about here, I'm gonna solo the guitars in this mix, and I'm gonna pull up this Pulsar 8200 EQ. Now, I just started playing with this plugin recently, and I like it. This is a really cool EQ plugin, but it has this auto gain button, which is gonna help me demonstrate this. So let's say I wanna add some more upper mid content, some more bite and grind to this guitar sound. Okay, pretty normal EQ happening there. We can really hear the difference. But if I hit this auto gain button on, watch how different this sounds.
It depends on the circumstance, man. I think in this circumstance, you wouldn't want to use auto gain, and it wouldn't really help you very much, but there's certain circumstances where you would want to use it. Like just because it's one instance where you wouldn't want to use it doesn't mean that's every time you use an EQ.
It's like I'm pushing it up just as much, but the difference I'm hearing is way smaller. It's actually harder to hear what I'm
That's the whole fucking point, man. That is the whole point.
doing.
That is the whole point.
Now again, if I switch
I mean, yeah, it's harder to hear the difference, but since you're auto gain matching it, it's going to be closer to the level.
this off,
I mean, it just depends on the context, you know? Like if you want it to be the same level or not. That's really when I would consider whether or not to use it.
pretty big difference.
Wow. Man discovers one is louder. Holy shit. Wow. Give it up for him, guys. He discovered one is louder. It sounds better because it's louder. Do you get it?
So in essence,
Average Pro Tools user.
if you've got auto gain on and you're making EQ moves, you're adding more of a certain frequency range, but then that algorithm is going back and it's correcting for that and it's bringing the signal down overall so that it sounds like the same loudness. So you're basically fighting
You're just changing the frequency balance.
against and undoing the very move that you're trying to make.
Yeah, I would say I probably use it more for subtractive EQ. I feel like it makes more sense there.
If I have auto gain on here, to achieve that same effect, I've got to
Oh, this video's, I don't know, man. I'm surprised he didn't like film this video and think like, there's definitely some holes here. There's definitely some holes here.
boost that EQ, and now I've also got to turn up the volume of the guitar track to hear that difference. And so I've now just added a completely unnecessary
Usually don't want auto gain with the EQ. I just think it depends on the circumstance.
extra step. And I think of saturation in a similar way. Like with saturation, you're adding frequency content. You're trying to make the sound bigger, make it take up more space in the mix. So let's do the same thing. For example, escalator.
One of the situations I could think where I use auto gain a lot is when I like the level of something in the mix already, and I don't want to change it, especially after doing subtractive EQ or something.
Okay, we're adding frequency content, we're pumping it up, and that's a difference that you can really easily hear when you A/B it. But if we try to gain match that, okay, now the difference becomes more subtle, but again, it's harder to make that call in the mix. Listen. You're pretty hard pressed to hear the difference there, but again, what's the point of that? I mean, to me, if I'm using saturation, I want it to have more energy. So why would I want to pull up a plugin, add more energy to it, and then take away the energy that I just added so that it's the same as before? Like, to me, it's basically defeating my original purpose. Now, sometimes I'm cranking up a lot of saturation and I do need to pull down the output because it's clipping or it's going too hot into the rest of the plugin chain. But when you're adding saturation, harmonics, distortion, it's supposed to make it sound louder. That's the point. You're adding more content to the signal.
He even like says, okay, he said it's supposed to make it sound louder. That's not the same thing as auto gain. That is just that is matching the volume. It's not matching the way it sounds. He argued with a few people about this. Yeah, definitely. He's been arguing in the comments all night.
And that's how you hear what difference it's making. Don't miss my point here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try and keep your output levels roughly the same as your inputs while you're mixing. But if that's what you're focusing on and you're spending more than a second or two,
you just like devalued his whole point right there.
Adjusting that level, or if you're
okay, so just don't focus on it. Gotcha.
Second guessing your decisions and you're stressing out about not having an auto gain match function, your mind is in the wrong place. You are no longer focusing on whether you're making the song better or not. And in some cases, like with EQ,
he is really passionate about the auto gain. He spent 5 minutes out of a 10-minute video for one topic. Yeah, there's supposed to be 2 more too.
It's actually counterproductive. It's making it harder for you to hear what you're doing and make the right decision. And remember, the purpose of making a mix move is to alter the sound in a way that you feel is necessary for the track. The goal is not to alter a sound, process it, and then go back and try and match it as close as possible to the original sound. All right, second thing people need to relax about is oversampling. I don't care about oversampling.
Okay, you know what? I might be on his side with this one here.
The pro mixers,
I don't really care that much about oversampling either.
So I respect, they're not out there talking about oversampling either. So what even is oversampling? Well, basically it's just when a plugin is operating at a higher sample rate internally so that if it's generating extra frequency content like harmonics, saturation, it can do that without introducing as much additional unwanted distortion back into the signal, which is called aliasing. Now, if you want to go deeper and learn more about that whole thing, you can just use Google, but that's the gist of it. So technically on an EQ or on a compressor, oversampling is completely pointless because you're not adding any extra harmonic content. It's only tools like saturation and distortion where this actually comes into play. So
I feel like it's like something pretty subtle too, though.
Happened a couple times.
Oversample and saturation definitely helps, though. Oversampling is only important when there's lots of high frequency, non-linear stuff. Aliasing is just free harmonics. Oh, ha.
Using an AmpSim plugin, and I hit that oversampling button on, and I feel like I hear a bit of a difference, like it's a little bit cleaner or something. But I'm talking about a 1 or 2%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like really, it's pretty subtle. It's not something that's gonna really matter that much in the mix or at all, really.
Difference here. And to be
It is like a hyper focus, I think. Isn't it inharmonic though?
honest,
Well, I mean, while that could be an issue, I just think it's a really small issue, at least to me personally.
I question whether I'm actually hearing any difference at all and whether it's not just a total placebo effect. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. You know, I've managed to build a career and make records that millions of people listen to without ever worrying about oversampling. Now,
Okay, that's not a good argument though.
maybe if you're working on stuff that's really pure and really sparse, and you really need it to be as clean as possible, and you really care about not having any additional noise, you might have a reason to think about this. But then again, if that's what you're working on, you're probably not going to be cranking up saturation and distortion anyways. And I find it ironic that people obsess over analog gear because of the extra noise and warmth and saturation and subtle distortion that it adds, and they want that. But then those same people turn around and they roast plugins for not being completely clean. With my plugin company, we sometimes get asked by customers, hey, can you add oversampling into the plugin?
Wait, Black Salt Audio is his plugin company?
And the question I want to ask back is,
Wait, hold on, what?
why? Like, what problem are you hearing? Are you hearing something wrong with?
Wait, what? He just said my plugin company. Hold on. I didn't know that.
Sound that sampling is going to fix? Now, of course, the answer is probably no. It's just that oversampling has become this symbol of quality or status, but most of the time it's completely unnecessary or...
That's true. Existing artifacts aren't nice warm noise or whatever. They're definitionally unrelated to the fundamental frequencies. That's why he's so adamant about oversample. He owns a plugin that doesn't have it.
Irrelevant, and it really can be purely a marketing gimmick that you're just playing into. The actual difference is inconsequential, because oversampling, or lack thereof, is not the reason that your mix doesn't sound good enough. You know, tons of hit records that sound great were made way before oversampling was a thing, and they're still being made today by people like me who could care less.
Oh, come on, man. By people like me, because I don't need it. I do a great job mixing. I don't use oversampling. Oversampling isn't always super important and it's soft overkill, so fair enough, but he clearly doesn't understand it very well. I just don't like the argument that it's like, well, it's fine. I don't need it, so it's not an issue, okay? I've done lots of great stuff without it. It's not a big deal.
So this is something you can safely forget about. All right, number 3, man, do I hate this tool, Plugin Doctor. I mean, I had no idea that this...
People always ask me to use this in plugin reviews, and honestly, I just don't understand how to use it. I just don't understand how to use it.
thing even existed until we
I've really tried very long, though.
started putting out plugins. And I remember someone was reviewing one of our plugins once in a YouTube video, and you know, they're playing with the plugin and they're saying they like it. Ooh, this sounds pretty good. They're turning knobs. They like what it's doing. Then they pull up Plugin Doctor and run it through Plugin Doctor, and then suddenly they decide that they actually don't like the plugin with their eyes. This is like eating a cookie. And
What is the context of this, though? What specifically made him not like it? I'm just curious.
thinking it tastes delicious, and then analyzing the chemical breakdown of the cookie, and then deciding that no, it actually is not delicious, it actually tastes horrible. I'll say this pretty directly. There is absolutely zero place
I need to know the context of this.
for a tool like Plugin Doctor in the workflow of someone trying to mix music. And if you are worried what a plugin looks like in Plugin Doctor, and if you're letting that dictate your decisions to any degree,
I don't think it's just the look of it, though, because you can use Plugin Doctor to, can you use it to help null things? I don't know. You can figure out what's going on underneath it. So it's not just how it looks in there.
you are way
Am I wrong about that?
off track. Like, are you gonna buy a guitar pedal and then
That is valid. What if the cookie has poison? True. It sounds like his plugins just got some small criticisms and now he's absolutely malding about it.
hook it up to an oscilloscope and then use that to decide whether the pedal sounds cool or not? Like, guys, this stuff is just so ridiculous. And the fact that people are using tools like this to try and gain credibility and judge a sound, like, I
Okay, gain credibility. Oh, that was a random thing to throw out there, I feel like.
honestly cannot think of anything less useful. For goodness sake,
This is a copium video, yeah.
this is music. Use your ears. Listen to it.
Did he say he owns Black Salt Audio? Isn't that the one that did the In the Mix plugin?
You cannot see whether something sounds good. Okay, that's the end of my rant. You know, there are just so many little tiny things in the audio world that make 1 or 2% difference at.
Do me next. Do me next. If a plugin has a subtle issue shown in Plugin Doctor, there's no reason not to switch to a different one that's completely clean. Yeah. I want to know the context of what he was talking about, though. I feel like that kind of, I don't really know exactly what he's talking about.
Most, but they become these huge obsessions and obstacles for people. But if you're someone who's just wanting to make your mixes sound more professional, more competitive, just get better at the craft, then every second
choose amazing freeze frames,
focusing on these things that have nothing to do with actually listening, you're just wasting your time. So with that in mind,
oh, was he doing this?
I better not make this video 1 second longer than it needs to be. Go and watch this instead for some stuff that will actually make you better.
Wow, I wonder what the comments say. Let's take a look here. Oh my God. Of course, I knew it in the mix. EQ auto gain is nuts, only useful in very select circumstances, sometimes useful to do relative gain. It's only needed in circumstances when the additional added content, or is he talking about, I don't know what he's talking about. Is he talking about just EQ for this whole thing, or? Okay, yeah, he didn't put what he was talking about here, but he's talking about each 3 things. He kind of just rehashing the same thing here. Let's see. Okay, so plugin doctors, just for knowing what's actually boosting or when it's not labeled at all, can just be useful to understand the inner workings of the plugin. Yeah, I mean, I get that. That makes sense to me. But I mean, making your decision based off that is a little bit weird for sure. Harder to hear using gain matching is kind of the point. Yeah, that's what I was saying about the auto gain matching with the EQ. Like, of course, it's going to be harder to hear. It's the same level, and you're only boosting like a frequency like 3 dB or whatever, you know? Depending on the nature of the treatment, I've never seen a plugin where you can't turn it off, so I've always considered it nice to have. I think it really depends on the circumstance. The auto gain is the one I have the most issue with there. Center of the screen. Does that do it for you? That doing it for you? I definitely disagree with the auto gain. That's like the one thing I'm just like, nah, I use it sometimes, especially with subtractive EQ.
The Band Incorporated.